Hi, everybody. We're ready for chapter 2 of Poppy. Chapter 2 is called Poppy Remembers. A stinging sensation on her nose woke Poppy. She touched her paw to the sore spot and winced. Winced. That's a great word. What's winced? Kind of like, like touched her nose and winced a little bit. Then she looked around the dark and shook her head with confusion. Where was she? Under a piece of rotten bark. Where was the bark? On Bannock Hill. What was she doing there? She had come up there with her boyfriend Ragweed. Where was Ragweed? No sooner did Poppy ask herself that than she felt the full horror of what had occurred rushed upon her. Ragweed, dead. Eaten, probably. Poppy closed her eyes. The sheer ghastliness of it, of the thought, made it hard for her to breathe. Then, recalling how close that she came to the same fate, she checked herself for other injuries. Though her plump round belly was white and the rest of her fur was kind of an orange-brown color, she had large ears and dark, almost round eyes, full whiskers, a tiny nose, pink toes, and a tail. Even for a deer mouse, Poppy was rather dainty. Under examination, everything except for her nose seemed to be intact correctly. She stole a look out from under the bark and considered her situation. She was on Bannock Hill, alone now, without permission. Oh, how she wished that she were home. She just wanted to be home. From her earliest days, just a few full moons ago, her parents had been teaching their litter about Mr. Oacax. She recalled how they had lined up all 12 of them to take instruction. Mr. Oacax has been about for ages, her father Longwort lectured in his sternest voice. He was a rather stout fellow with elegantly curled whiskers and slightly protruding front teeth. His crowning glory was an ivory thimble that he found, on which, ever since he'd worn as a cap. Mr. Oacax has been here longer than any mouse's living memory. Longwort continued. The territory around Dimwood belongs to him. Mr. Oacax is the king. And he protects us? Said sweet Cicely, Longwort's wife, and Poppy's mother. I'm sorry, she was like making a fact, stating a fact, and he protects us. That's the most important thing. Sweet Cicely was a small creature, even for a deer mouse, with soft, pale eyes and a nervous habit of flicking at her ears and her paws if they were dusty. Protects us from what? Poppy remembered Ragweed asking. An outsider. He had been hanging around the family. He was always asking for answers. Why do deer mouse live here? Why not there? Why do you folks eat this food and not that food? Why is your fur dark on top and white on the bottom when mine is golden? Why couldn't it be the other way around? Though these constant questions could be irritating, Poppy had to admit that she'd often wondered about the answers herself. Curiosity, however, was not something that her parents encouraged. Poppy admired Ragweed's persistence. Mr. Oacax protects us from all the creatures that eat us, Longwort answered gravely. Raccoons, foxes, skunks, weasels. One by one, he displayed pictures of these animals. Most important, he protects us from porcupines, like this one. And he held up a lurid picture of a huge black-nosed beast covered with gruesome spikes. Blood seemed to drip from his snarling mouth. The young mice gasped in dread. Porcupines are our particular enemies, Longwort insisted. There is nothing porcupines won't do to catch a mouse. What would they do with us? What would they do with us then? Acorn, one of Poppy's sisters, asked, in a trembling voice. First, they shoot their barbed quills at you, Longwort said. Then they trample you, sweet Cicely added. Finally, Longwort concluded, they break you into little bits and then they gobble you up. Now this was terror to the young mice, and they all felt it except Ragweed. Lungwort, he demanded, other than that picture that you've shown us, have you ever seen a porcupine? Have you seen a real one? Well, not precisely, Lungwort snapped, but let me tell you this. Ragweed, I'd be more than thrilled to get through my whole life without seeing one. After all, Mr. Oakax has seen porcupines. Often, in private conversations with me, often. In private conversations with me, these are actual personal experiences I can verify. He informed me that porcupines are not only extremely dangerous, but they're also devilishly shy. Take note that this judgment comes from a powerful meat-eating bird. The point is, Mr. Oakax protects us from porcupines. It is he, in fact, who is kind enough to educate us about them, as well as supply the pictures. Here's a picture. Then how come you have to worry about this dude Oakax too? Ragweed pressed on. Struggling to control his temper, Lungwort tapped his thimble-cap down over his forehead. Fuming, he replied, Mr. Oakax protects us from vicious porcupines only when we accept him as our ruler, that's why. All he requires is that we ask his permission whenever we move beyond the immediate area of Gray House. We all have freedom to go about the old orchard up to Glitter Creek. We can do the same for Farmer Lamount's fields. At your own risk, of course, because life is full of danger. Go beyond, however, and we need to get Mr. Oakax's permission. That's a reason? Ragweed persevered. Sweet Cicely, brushing her ears, sighed with exasperation. How Poppy, her own daughter, could take up with such an ill-annoyed ruffian was beyond her understanding. All the same, she said, Ragweed, as Mr. Oakax has patiently explained to my husband, he needs to know if we're moving about so that he won't mistake us for porcupines. Asking permission is a small sacrifice to pay for our own safety. Lungwort nodded in agreement. That owl, he pointed out, has incredible vision and hearing. He can hear or he can see anything, even in the dark. And it's a good thing, too. Porcupines prowl at night. They move like lightning, and Mr. Oakax says. They shoot quills without asking questions, and they kill without mercy. No, my boy, we don't argue with Mr. Oakax. He's our protector. If we disobey him, break the rules, and I can't say that I blame him either, he gets very upset. What'll he do then? Asked Leaf, one of Poppy's brothers. He'll eat you, Lungwort replied briskly as he put away the picture of the porcupine. And, he continued, it happens. During the past year, we have lost some 15 family members. It may be presumed that they all failed to ask Mr. Oakax their permission to go somewhere. The children were shocked into silence. Ragweed, however, spoke out again. Hey, Pops, didn't I hear that you say porcupines are huge? You saw the picture, Lungwort responded. And don't call me Pops. It's common. So, them porcupines, those are, they're bigger than us, right? A lot bigger, Sweet Cicely said, emphasizing the word lot. Well, old lady, Ragweed kept on, if them there porcupines were so huge, and we're so small, and if this dude owl has such amazing sight, how come he might confuse us mice with them, with those dude porcupines? You know what I'm saying? The indignant Sweet Cicely looked at her husband. Lungwort sputtered. Ragweed, for your information, proper grammatical usage is those porcupines, not them porcupines, or them their porcupines. And while I'm thinking about it, if you intend to court my daughter, that means like date his daughter. If you intend to court my daughter, I'll thank you enough to groom your hair properly so that when you get up in the morning. As for that earring that you've been taken to wearing, I don't like it, not one little bit. This family is committing itself to keeping up with proper mice values, and it's opposed to stupid questions. With that, Lungwort stalked away, tail whipping away with aggravation. This picture. On Bannock Hill, Poppy remembered it all. She also remembered that it was Ragweed who insisted that they come up the hill, but that he absolutely refused to ask Mr. Okex's permission to do so. Perhaps then what occurred, horrible as it had been, had served Ragweed right. Then and there, Poppy vowed that she would never ever leave home again. The difficulty was that at that moment she was far from home. She was frightened and she was alone. Chapter 3 is called Poppy Alone.